Liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order with one absent. First item on the agenda this morning is Miranda McGrath, sign request. Good morning, Miranda.
Thank you for having me. I brought my neighbor, Jen Creek, who's also here to support this request.
Okay.
I brought you guys a little, well, a lot of information in regards to my daughter Tabitha. He is a 12-year-old student at Decorah Middle School who was born hearing and in the last month has been diagnosed as severely hard of hearing with progressive. We anticipate in the next year to 2 years her being completely deaf. So Tabitha was born with normal hearing and lived her entire childhood learning traffic, bike, road, and other safety measures like any other hearing child. In August of 2024, at 12 years old, we were alerted to a possible hearing problem at a routine well child check. 1 month and several appointments later, Tabitha has been diagnosed as severely hard of hearing bilaterally and will forever live in a world that is different than anything she's ever known. Decorah Schools and I had requested a deaf child sign be placed in our neighborhood. The county engineer met this request with a reply that came across as rude and condescending, making unfair assumptions about Tabitha and stating, quote, the estimate for the caution deaf child sign county installation is $135.46 per sign. He continued to state I would discourage the installation of any signs for the reasons cited in the link that he sent me. And because your child is 12 years old and presumably high functioning, I see little benefit and a burden on the Winneshiek County taxpayer. In the website that the engineer provided, the site is blatantly positioned to people saying that these signs are bad. The site also quotes that they're unable to cite any studies of effectiveness or ineffectiveness of deaf child signs. It continues to state that no such studies exist at this time. If there are no statistical studies available to support your claim, then it's merely an opinion. It doesn't reflect well when studies are cited but cannot be provided. When we look at and consider the burden on Winneshiek County taxpayers, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, as of July 1st, 2023, there are 9,129 homes in Winneshiek County. If you do the math, that equates to 0.015 cents per homeowner to pay for a deaf child sign. I'm having a hard time understanding how that's a burden on Winneshiek County taxpayers, as he stated. Is a child's safety worth less than a penny per home? Your county engineer also unfairly assumes that my daughter is high functioning. While yes, she is 12 years old and is high functioning in a normal hearing world, everything she has ever known has been in that hearing world, which has been stripped away from her in the blink of an eye. So I can safely say that she is not high functioning in a deaf and hard of hearing world because it's new and unfamiliar. Tabitha cannot hear decibels between 30 and 75. Did you know that a car engine at 35 miles an hour produces 64 decibels of sound at 50 feet away? Those fancy new electric cars, they're only 56 decibels. While a car horn is 100 decibels, it's considered within her normal hearing range. For Tabitha, it will be significantly quieter and difficult to distinguish from other background noises, requiring her to pay extra attention just to perceive it, and then the time it will take her to process which direction it's actually coming from. While yes, she is high functioning in your engineer's words, she's been put in a place where she has to relearn everything she knows about safety. In the next 2 to 3 years, Tabitha is expected to go completely deaf. We don't know what that will mean for our family right now, but what we do know is having a deaf child sign in our neighborhood gives us a chance to breathe, even if for a brief moment, while we reteach and relearn safety protocol.
You have something, Jim?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Got my other eyes on them. All right. Anyone who has children always puts safety first for the child. As a community, we strive to keep all of our citizens safe. Tabitha is both a citizen and a child. Tabitha has a progressive severe hearing loss disorder, which at this time is unknown of a cure. Our neighborhood consists of 28 houses. That means a lot of traffic of cars and farm machinery on our road, 50 to 70 times a day. Even though everyone is or tries to be safe from things that happen, let's not let those things happen. We ask you to support and pass a motion to install the 2 signs requested by the school and keep our children safe. That's what I have.
Okay. Mike, you want to spill your side of the story here?
So I
think we can come to a resolution on this, but
yes, so I got the request, and I'm forgetting the exact day that I got the request. I got the request on this sign, and when I take a request, I try to look at it through the eyes of my role as county engineer to make sure that we put our taxpayers' money to good use. And my history with working with in the field is basically that signs are sometimes useful, sometimes not. And in this case, the slow children and things like that, those kinds of signs haven't been proven or disproven to work. And so we're putting in a sign that is, we don't know where we want to put it. We don't have optimal locations set up. We don't have just a general known reason that it's going to be a benefit. So when I said no, the idea is that I'm following the ITE, Institution of Transportation Engineers, called guidelines. It's not a rule that says they're generally don't prefer to put them in. And if they don't prefer to put them in, I don't want to put cost taxpayers. So that's a no. And it's very similar to like a lot of regulations where I put it on the Board of Supervisors to say, if the Board of Supervisors wants me to put this in, that means the county, that you represent the county interest, and I'm more than happy to facilitate that. I recommend, because it's not a recommendation by the ITE that Miranda pay for this. However, I'm kind of like trying to be as open as I can with how this process needs to work out. So it's not a factor of me not wanting to help out. It's me trying to do my job as best I know. And the reasons also for not doing it, in my opinion, go into the fact that this isn't a through street. There's lots of sight distances and things like that. And there wasn't even a soft reason, I'll call it a gray reason for me to really think that this was a good candidate to consider. Now I'm saying that as dispassionately as I can, and it sounds harsh, but it's just the way I look at the whole situation is we don't have like a multi-family situation where there's not a lot of room. There's lots of yard space in the area, and it's just not a compelling reason for me to overrule the ITE recommendations. That being said, the reasons for this, in my mind, would be something like if you look at things like bike trails and things like that, they're not really more efficient as transportation mechanism. But a lot of people think that that's a community good. And so I'm asking the Board of Supervisors basically to say, is this a community good? Or is this something that I'm kind of putting the decision on you, is what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to give you some,
East Ridge Road,
East Ridge and
Which is,
up by the airport, storage sheds on the left, on the north side of the road. It's that gravel road right there.
that's a dead end road.
It's a dead end road.
which is why one sign would be sufficient, because everybody coming in would see it. And they don't need to see it going out, because they've already seen it coming in.
So it's the fact that you can put a sign up. It's just that you would have to pay for it. Yeah.
right now, I'm,
That, so there's an option for you.
Right now,
Sign up.
Mike said that if the board says just pay for the sign and put it up, he would.
right,
But we do have the option where if Miranda paid for the sign, the county would install it.
With the solar.
But when the school requests the signs themselves,
Why would the school request?
they did it.
The school requested.
The
them
school
because
requested
across
two
the
signs.
road for the bus stop.
Bus.
the school requested the signs, but the issue here is that they don't have jurisdiction of the right of way. So then it becomes that becomes my decision. And they don't provide a reason for putting that sign in, and
It's more of a request.
this is a request, is what it comes down to.
Sounds to me, if I may,
No, go
sounds
ahead.
to me that Michael's position is unless the ITE or this recommends it, that he doesn't want to make the decision, he wants you to make the decision.
That is,
Kind of like very similar to the ones at the churches where we have the flashing lights for the churches where they request it, but Michael won't approve it. He leaves it to the board.
And we have done those.
And then we pay for them.
I
That's up
think
to you.
it's up to you. Sometimes
Like all the children at play signs. I mean, if everyone wants a children at play sign, how can we install how many of those? Because there's small children.
that's why you need to address them on a case by case basis. Michael isn't, once he says he's not gonna follow the IT guidelines, and where is he going to ever say no? So then he wants you to make the decision, not him.
Do we have precedent for putting up signs?
So they pay because they have flashing lights.
Is this just a sign, not an electrical sign?
That's right.
Sign.
A sign.
Yeah.
The
I've
question,
seen them before.
yeah, and I have too. I've seen them all over the place in different towns I've been in. But I have you're talking about a sign and the cost of a sign and how much it's gonna cost. Our road, at the beginning of the road, there's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. Great. It's a dead end road. Why did we need one going the other way? And they just put that up this last summer. That's a sign that costs the same amount of money as this is gonna cost, if to put it in perspective. So you spent money to put a sign up for people that's coming out of our neighborhood that already live there, that know it's 35 miles an hour, but they have no idea in our neighborhood that there was a deaf child. And now they do. And everybody in our neighborhood is on board with it, but I'm not gonna ask them for 50 cents on the dollar to say, help pay for this sign.
What's the harm here?
That's my feeling.
Well, it would set, well,
So,
it would set precedent. If we
Okay.
paid for it. If everybody wanted a child to play sign in front of
This
the
isn't a
house,
child at play, this is a deaf child.
a 3-year-old
Deaf.
child, it does not have the awareness of a, I mean.
I get it, Mark, the whole scenario is,
I'm
yeah.
not unsympathetic. to
I know
at
that.
all.
I know that.
But the option, there is an option.
And what is the option? For her to pay for it?
I guess.
But I know there's another family moving in and I don't know what their child are, but I'm not just looking. So if it's a precedent, a deaf sign, maybe that makes more people more aware. There's children here, not necessarily deaf children, but there's children everywhere. So slow down, be safe, watch out.
Putting one of our signs in the church, that was setting precedent. We weren't worried about it at that time. We haven't had an influx of every church in the county asking for a sign. Talk about
You got question, but yeah, I don't
We
remember.
did some.
I think we did some of them and sometimes they split the cost and it had to do with how many and similar to the speed signs at some of the cities where we would, if they requested them, we would do so many, but then if they wanted more, they had to pay for them and that kind of thing. And it's always been on a case by case basis. So
What's your feeling, Steve?
I'm very sympathetic to, for lots of reasons. I think we have to do it on anything by case basis, you know, I think that with the handicap that comes with deafness and all, one of the biggest issues is education. Because people don't understand the limitations or don't consider it because they haven't come across it usually. It's not as common as someone that's lost a limb or something like that. But it's just as debilitating or even more so. But I don't have an objection to it, but I do understand that we have to make it on a case by case basis. It's not the engineer's responsibility, it's this board's responsibility. But I don't want to see this blanket policy unless it's considered and it can be justified.
Like the case by case basis, and I see where the harm here is, and we're talking about $134 and a child's safety. I don't think we're gonna be inundated with other requests just because of this one, and we make it very clear this is a case by case.
Yeah, I think the engineers bringing this to the table is a very important aspect of it, and I think that's well done.
I don't fault with the following guidelines.
Right.
No,
But that's the response. So, and like I said, I totally am sympathetic to the whole thing. It can open up a whole other thing to spend their time.
Yeah.
What's more important? 15 kids in a neighborhood like Plain Street or one.
I thought Mike did a pretty good job
Yeah.
of answering the question, because if you read this article that he
Yeah.
created on that link, it is interesting. And I see where he was coming from, but I also see your guys' point.
I had a deaf niece who was attending college, and her ability to attend college was based on the fact that she could read lips. She had a professor who would not shave. And so she failed the class, and it wasn't because she didn't try. It was because he wouldn't cooperate.
I would move that we install the sign
I'd second it.
Do it.
with, go ahead. I would move that we install the sign, and I would move that the county go ahead and pay for it. It's $100.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I would say
Who seconded? Oh, I didn't hear that.
I can see that, but I think in the future, we should look at a policy where is there a cost share on some signs, whether it be a church or disability or whatever. So we don't always end up in this situation. Is it all or nothing? And if we have in the past asked people to contribute partially to something, then we need to figure out going ahead, what's our sign policy?
We don't have per se sign policy.
I think Michael's policy is that he follows the ICE guidelines. So a speed limit sign, whether you think it's needed or not, if that's what the guidelines say, that's what he does. I mean,
But this is
I'm not-
Board of Supervisors.
yeah.
So let's just say, we,
yeah, you don't have one, I don't
if
think.
we are going to override policy, should there be a policy and is there a compromise in the middle on that?
I think it's a good topic for this next 6-county meeting. Find out what
But we
some of our
don't have-
neighbors are also doing.
But we don't have that policy now, so we'll vote on it.
Okay. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimous.
The only other question that I would have,
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay, that's what I was gonna say, where to put it, yeah.
You can get in touch with me at your convenience.
Yes, we'll do.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
No problem. Either way.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda. Full project updates. That bridge looks great.
Thank-
All project poured,
All the pavements poured, yes.
a little bit of shouldering and some guardrails. Did the beams break from bridge surface yet, or have they not been
It
tried?
did, it didn't come in great, so
Oh.
She's the best. Yeah,
And did one get put in the mark
I will.
basket? And then I'll put them over here.
So I guess we'll get started. So Bridge 5, the one part of the approach was poured on Friday, another one was poured on Wednesday. This complete the pouring process for the pavement. Guardrail and longitudinal grooving are the main items yet to be completed. Completion will likely be in November. Bridge 208E, check plans have been submitted and the final plans are continuing to be worked on. Hope to send those out this week. W14 contract paving operations south of Spillville completed on Tuesday. River City crew began operations on Bridgeway to Spillville on Wednesday. A second paving machine came online Friday on that single crew. And then now a second crew has been discussed starting as soon as Tuesday. That crew is likely coming from the VA. And then the same thing as before, if you want to get in touch, be on the email listserv, you can contact engineer@co.winneshiek.ia.us. I finished the speed study for Middle Hesper, so I have a copy here if you haven't seen it yet. Basically, 35 miles per hour is what my conclusion, my recommendation for the whole length. I mean, that's a reasonable request.
It's currently 25.
It is currently 25, so you would increase miles per hour. Just looking at the raw data, which was submitted in that report, you'll see that there's plenty of people driving 40 plus miles an hour. So
There's an 85 on there or something.
yeah, that one I almost took out because it was in the exact same moment as another 254, which was something, with the machine that LTAP had.
Let's hope.
That's really.
I left it in, but it's one of those things where if it's 85 percentile, you're not really dealing with that speed, you're dealing with the whole rest of
It's an outlier.
it's an outlier.
It wasn't.
I just thought it was humorous.
Yeah, no, again, it's what do you cut? It could be.
You want to make a motion to approve the recommended amount so they can add that to their.
We can do that. So would that mean that we would change the speed limit sign here this week? Or
At your convenience, I guess.
well, at my convenience, but I'm saying, are we talking about putting it in place now, or do you want to talk about perhaps splitting it up? My recommendation is to keep the whole New Valley and Middle Hesper, which had different speeds on it.
Consistent.
The same, just as was posted at a 25 miles an hour speed limit,
I would move to do the whole thing up to the 35 based on your speed study.
based on my recommendation. Okay, because that was I got to the conclusion. I said, well, there is room for that, but I had to make one recommendation.
I would second that.
Right, we have a motion in a second for 35 mile per hour speed limit on the entire Middle Hesper section.
And Canoe,
And Canoe Valley.
yep.
And is there any further discussion?
Was Shirley made the motion and who seconded
I
it?
did.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
All right, subdivision data has been gathered. That's the next on my list. Union negotiations, I had nothing new. I don't know when to remove that. Ben, do you have any? I meant to go talk to you.
So there was a email last week from the state board or the agency that manages collective bargaining units that they had completed their vote. So they have to do an election whether to continue the union, and I didn't even see what their response or what the result was. I didn't have time to be trying to research that. So I think John Anderson should, now that they've completed the vote, we know if they're continuing as a union or not. Something will probably happen soon now.
Sure. I will be on the watch out for that.
Yeah.
FEMA, that's the same note as last week. Still haven't burned anything, the burn ban. Hopefully the weather this week will change things. Ridgeway shop improvements, we're moving along. I think they sent pictures of the Ridgeway shop improvements. I got a couple of good replies back on that. The same note as last week on the safety data. I will be applying for that grant this week. Shoulder operation for Big Canoe and Locust Road to start on Tuesday, tomorrow. Ice control rock was hauled to Ocean, Fort Atkinson, Kindleville, and Ridgeway last week. I sent out an email to the crew that got good feedback from the board there. I copied you on. Ice control rock is.
That's a good system. I like what you're doing there.
I'm just trying, because it is more expensive, I'm trying to target its use.
Mhm.
So that's the goal there from a big picture. The stream sign grant that I applied for in March was finally signed this week. Executed. That was in coordination with the DNR, so we'll be putting up Upper Iowa River signs and some Turkey River signs throughout the county. All of our hard roads will have the river signs put in. Some of the gravels where people can access the river that way will also have the signs. So
What grant was that?
I'd have to look at the exact name, but it's through the DNR. It's for watershed delineation. So I can send you.
It's the same signs we had on the yellow.
Yeah, it's something that we apply for every year. Some engineers don't like applying for it. I say if we get the signs paid for, bring money into the secondary road fund. It's a net positive.
It's good for tourism too, for fishing.
And that was part of my grant application, so yes, I tend to agree on that. Had a busy morning today, so I didn't put the fact that we applied in coordination with other Iowa counties into the RAISE grant. And our submittal was accepted into the grants committee application for this grant. The project would be fiscal 2029, and the project is W14 south of Fort Atkinson. We applied for a cold in place, and to continue the cross section that Fayette County is putting in place with rumble strips and a widened shoulder. It's part of it's traffic safety was the focus of this grant on the NOFO. That was done this week, and that it is indeterminate amount right now. It'd be an 80-20 split, so I don't know what the funding amount would be because we're part of a big grant. So if we only get, $1 million on it, then maybe it doesn't go because we'd have to take it out of our. But we're looking at that as our target. So that grant has not been assured. So the grants committee is going to take that and go to the feds and say, this is what we want to do. So that hasn't been assured in any way, shape or form. So, but the grants committee did accept that as part of their package that they're sending to the feds.
Or, 165th done before it rains on Wednesday?
I hope so. So yeah, I think that they'll be close.
It'll be close. I thought,
So-
too. Culverts are in.
Yeah, and yeah,
A little bit of ditch digging left on the west.
nobody lives on that road, so
Yeah, that's where you got the advantage of leaving the post signs.
yeah. So. Any other questions?
A lot of good comments about W14.
I drove it. Yeah, I mean, I just hope people don't get complacent is what I'm hoping, because it's still windy. So,
Has it been striped yet or?
it has not been striped that I'm aware of, so I don't think they would. We'll see where they get on the north portion, and that's probably because they'll want to do one mobilization. But hopefully this weather is only at night type of thing. Else?
Oh, we've got the folder is probably using that machine we have now.
That will be starting tomorrow. Well, Fillmore County has one exactly the same, so I think it'll be okay.
Oh, good.
So
You're gonna ride the first pass. So.
I have to go there tomorrow. But a little bit, the little thing is, I don't know how I'm gonna fit, to be honest.
Probably, Michael, it's probably.
I'm gonna have to fold up, I think.
We have a good excuse.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Take a spray paint can of fresh paint, it'll feel better.
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that. All right.
Thank you, Mike. Next item on the agenda, panel for miscellaneous, discuss the recycling supervisor interview procedures.
In case you hadn't seen the email I just got this morning, I forwarded it to you, the 2:30 applicant has withdrawn. So,
Today?
yeah, today. So rather than meeting at 2 for a interview at 2:30, I think you can wait till 3 and have the interview at 3:30.
And is that one open or closed? Because they just.
It's up to the person. Three of the people had requested close, and one of them was the one that withdrew, so I can't remember the fourth one, but they can request right up till the time of the interview, so. I would guess it'll be the request closed, but I haven't heard for sure on the fourth person yet. And I think that's the one that's today at 3:30.
So at 3, we'll go over the questions we have compiled so far, and I have additional questions here I received from Steve this morning, so we'll go through all of them at that time.
These were
10 minutes.
These.
We can still have 10.
I don't think we should
I
do
think we should do it. It'll be our interviews.
anybody online.
So at 3, you can meet and decide who's gonna ask which questions and so on.
Pardon?
At 3, you can meet and decide who's
Right.
gonna ask which of the questions and that kind of.
You guys have any questions about that?
How was your field trip to the sewage treatment?
Down in Festina?
Yeah. Look
It's
good.
a wonderful system. It doesn't take up much space. It's not.
It's about the size of this, I mean, the whole thing is about the size of this room, really. I mean, not much bigger than that.
It's gonna be great. They're still thinking about building a shed, or they're going to build a shed around the UV.
$6,000 it's gonna cost them. to
For the shed.
replace that. And they have to send those UV systems back in after the 15th of November now.
Because they came and looked at it.
Yeah. Those are gonna get sent back to the main supplier and reworked. Because they said something's out of balance in them, and that's what's causing them to unplug and then not function. So I spoke with Donnie about that this last week, and that's what he was telling me about it, so.
Yeah, that,
He said, at no cost, they'll take care of their mistake. Don't know what really happened.
I'd like to see it do something with the slope banks around those tanks, because that's just, that won't last.
It's much different than when you see those systems where there's a great big sweep arm going around and there's nothing exposed on this. It's all-
Inside each of those little tanks I just showed you, there's a individual little system that has the microorganisms growing in it. And they're about 12 feet deep for each of those green tanks I just showed.
There's 4 tanks.
And there are 4 total.
There's a solids tank where everything comes in to begin with, and then after it goes through the solids, then it goes into another tank, and then out of that tank, it gets filtered into those green things. And then from there, it gets pumped over and goes through a UV system and then gets discharged.
The reason they'll be waiting till after November 14th to send them in, once it freezes, you don't necessarily need the UV. The freezing will kill the bacteria.
Yeah, the E. coli and so forth is dead at that point, so it's safe to discharge without, and the water coming out of there is basically clear.
They said we could drink it, but we didn't.
No one was taking the offer.
So, yeah, that was, it's a much different expectation when there's no big field and sweep arms and all that stuff going on. It's just all.
When we first moved here 3 years ago, we got a tour. We went on a tour with other people to the water treatment plant out near Wellington Place. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about water treatment, but
Yeah.
the manager there in glowing terms about those little microbes. Oh, we love microbes.
The good news is that
Your gut too.
something that's natural can do the work. It's not a chemical policy.
On community services, I spoke with John Halverson. They're working on taking, Rogers Lock and Key is working on taking the fob system that we have and integrating that over onto the single door at the community services building, and they're investigating what it would take for us to put the fob system. What we have to do on the front doors where our real handicap access is. And that's, so we actually would have control on both of the doors.
So you're talking the door on the north side?
Yeah. So it would be not as convenient for people that park on that side, but we need to have the handicap aspect and so forth into there. Also, I think Lukey is working on putting some cameras in so we get access, some coverage on the doors. We've got cameras that were removed from elsewhere that he thinks can be repurposed over there at probably the lobby area and back door. That's a real plus. Fire sprinkler drops are all done. You see the bills in there today for that. But everything else seems to be going along well.
Really haven't heard anything back yet. Have to hound them this week.
John is waiting for the license to show up for the boiler out there, but I think he'll be out turning on heat on Wednesday morning.
Over 80 degrees down, but.
Yeah.
Possible snow.
We had hail the other day at Spillville.
That night shower.
Yes, solid, happy hail.
We didn't have it here, but just outside of town.
The committee reports,
I've got a Northeast Iowa Community Action tonight and Upper Explorer Land on Thursday. And did you want to present?
I have a hawk at one.
I've got Northeast Iowa Workforce Development Board on Thursday.
Pass this around. I'm not gonna start everybody.
that might be easier than reading everything.
Yeah. You could go through that.
But there was $203,200 worth of grants. In Winneshiek County goals and tours this last calendar year. So that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money.
I'll try that in a second. So there's, can I go ahead?
Go ahead.
This pie chart on this page, it shows the collection of the local option sales tax. And what that pie chart is showing is Decorah collects 80.9% of that here, but it is shared throughout the county. So it's showing the percent collected in each of the municipalities of the county. But that money helps the whole county.
And also the chart on the top with the hotel and motel tax. It shows on how that's been going up since the pandemic. So it went down to 414,000, and last year was up to 600 and almost 77,000. And this year, so far, it is at 355. So we don't know where that number is going to end up yet, but that's looking good.
As long as that's, no tax state and county. That's saying it's collected from whatever hotels, but it's, I mean, it's all of the county.
Yes.
And it actually all goes to the city. The city, and they decide how to spend it.
There's certain dollar amounts.
The rural areas have not passed hotel motel tax, only and the other 7 cities have not passed hotel motel tax. Only the has implemented.
But a lot of that hotel motel tax used in Decorah is also used on projects in the county.
And the Airbnbs do pay hotel motel taxes. Originally, they weren't included, they now are also paying like that.
Originally, the operators were supposed to collect it and
Yes.
submit it on their own,
Nobody did.
but few did.
Well, how did they get teeth in it? So it was getting.
I think Airbnb implemented it at that on their side so that it was getting uniformly imposed.
I don't know if the state worked with them or not, but all of a sudden they take a chunk out of it before you get paid. So that was good. Because there's lots of them.
So Sunflower Daycare is still fundraising if anybody feels so inclined. We've got 375,000 yet to go. They're reaching that goal quickly.
Anybody make it to that open house?
I went to the one for donors earlier. It's great. If you haven't looked at it yet, please take an opportunity to go see Sunflower and the Discovery Center. Awesome.
And you coming to?
I'm
online, Dan.
Yep, there you go. I was gonna say Andy's probably gonna be, he's out of state the next 2 weeks, but he'll be trying to attend online, so he's here.
Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. What do you have for me today?
That food pantry lease, let's get that all worked up there so we can get that signed. They're okay with everything that way?
Clean copy put together and send it over to you and to Ben, and you guys can deliver it to whoever needs to sign it.
All right, that sounds good.
Where are you at with IT on recording of meetings?
I should have a response. I reached out to another county on some issues, and when I get that response, I should be able to talk to Ben and John and get things ready to go.
Thanks.
Great.
Anyone have anything else? If that's it, Andy.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you later.
Good thing you didn't drive in.
I have a question.
I was, I'll take a couple, well, go ahead and ask. I want to go through them a little bit more here.
Yeah. Not that it's a big, huge expense, but what does it mean, poker chips? Do you know?
The website.
The poker chips on the first page at the bottom.
I'm looking for it too.
First page, very bottom entry.
And it goes up to the top of the second page.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, let me see what is paid out of, you know, which I can look.
Clay poker
VA.
chips.
Veterans
VA.
Clay poker chips.
I don't know, something that they're
Something
handing out, you know, I would guess.
And the Blackhawk sprinklers, is that for the community service? Is that what PSB is?
Fire sprinklers to be compliant.
I can give a quick election update if you're looking at this stuff, if you want. We've been having very busy in-person early voting. Not early voting, it isn't technically early voting, it's still absentee voting. In Idaho, we have in-person absentee voting and mail absentee voting, but for over 4,000 voters. One of the issues, if you want to call it that rose last week is that the Secretary of State's office called an emergency meeting of all the auditors, and we had to attend online, meeting about people who had indicated to the Department of Transportation when they got a driver's license or ID card that they were not US citizens, but also then had registered to vote and indicated that they were US citizens. And so because of the question of their citizenship status, we were informed that we were required by the Secretary of State to challenge their ballots, and which then means that their ballots are held aside and give them an opportunity to prove whether they're citizens or not, or their ballots can be counted. So we had 9 people on our list. There were some counties that didn't have any people on their list, which would have been handy, but we had 9 on ours, which is a small list. And 2 of those people had already voted. So I was required by the Secretary of State to send letters challenging their ballots, which has created some discussion on online, on forums, saying that I'm criticizing me, but I'm just making sure everyone knows it wasn't my choice. It was the Secretary of State's requirement, and we'll just proceed through and let those people provide the additional necessary documents if they are US citizens.
How are they identified?
We were given a list of names that the driver's license database where they had reported to the DOT that they were not US citizens. And they had reported when they registered to vote that they are US citizens. So because of that question, knowing which reporting was correct, we were required to challenge their ballots. We was also very definitely directed that the directive was that we need to have them vote, but challenge the ballots to set them aside so that they can have an opportunity to provide further evidence one way or the other, since there's a question of what their current status is. It's perfectly reasonable to think that someone gets a driver's license and becomes a citizen after that point, because driver's licenses are only renewed every 5 years or more. So it could change, your status could change. So it could be that these people are valid counted ballots. At the same time, it could be that they've misunderstood the question on one of the 2 places. So
It sounds like the checks and balances worked. And
yeah, they have.
It
I
seems like
think it's appropriate. I think that as much spotlight at the national level is going on, that if we can say we've done everything that we can to verify the accuracy of our records, we are. So if you know any of these people, that we've only had 2 that have we've sent letters to, and so. And actually, they had already voted before this emergency meeting, so there was no way to pre-check them or anything because they had already cast ballots. But if you know one of them and they are a citizen, just make sure they know that they just need to present the correct documentation and we'll get their ballots counted.
It's unfortunate. It's a very arcane system. If they're going, you can't update. If we're gonna use a driver's license as the primary ID, it is not updated. If
Very
that,
frequently, yes.
rather than waiting for 5 years before it can be done. Otherwise,
Yeah.
every time that person would go through a checkpoint of the airport or whatever, they're gonna be pulled aside and go on the whole.
I think that the only complaint I have, I think the system is good that we are checking. That's the whole point of checking, listing the driver's license so we can check. I think that's appropriate. I think if I had a complaint about the system is why they didn't do this a few months ago rather than waiting until we were already in the middle of voting to do it. And so that has created some, I mean, it's a lot of extra paperwork, both for those voters. Now they have to make another trip back in. And for our office, because we had to prepare challenge documents and we'll have to present all these documentations to the group that's there on election day counting the absentee ballots, and they'll have to be judges and decide if the paperwork, if they should be counted or not, and that kind of thing. So
Sounds like another unfunded mandate of sorts.
it's of sorts. It's just created a lot of extra paperwork, and
Sounds like
obviously, if a person is a US citizen and if one of these two have citizenship, why this couldn't have been resolved earlier is a complaint for them, but it's not, I just want everyone to know it's not my fault. It's the Secretary of State in the last minute.
It would be wise for a new citizen to go down and get a new driver's.
That's what I was just gonna say, it should be a requirement that if you become a US citizen, that if you do have a driver's license, it must be issued at that point.
Yeah, because that symbol that's on the license is also used by TSA and screening and so forth. Is the pace of the early voting continuing this week?
So far, I mean, it's still Monday morning and I was
Here,
getting ready for this and coming here, but we have seen, I have to take 2020 basically out because it was anomalous because of COVID. And we just had it, there was such a push statewide for voting by mail that year just to reduce personal contact. So that isn't a good comparison here, but if you go back to 2016 or 2012, we are behind, have fewer ballots by mail than we did those years. But I think we're going to make up and have just as many early votes. They're just in person. So we're generating more business in the office to get them voted rather than through the mail, which for most people, if you live in the area, if you aren't actually absent from the county, I mean, if you're living somewhere else, then your mail is your option, or if you have mobility issues, then mail is your option. But if you're living in the county and can stop and do it here, it's more secure because your ballots never leave the auditor's office. You cast them, they're put in a box, they're put in our vault, locked at night. They get out on election day to the bipartisan team that then opens them and counts them. So it's a secure system, plus it's cheaper. I mean, if you want to look at it strictly from a money perspective, we pay postage both to and from, and you don't have to worry about whether your ballot is lost in the mail at some point.
Until election day.
Nothing is counted until election day anyway, so.
We don't have any, I was watching TV this morning in Texas. You can't wear any clothing with particular candidates' name or anything on it within 100 feet of the polling stuff.
So in Iowa, the electioneering rules are 300 feet, but you can wear candidate or campaign clothing or hats or whatever when you're voting. So you can go in, vote, and leave, and that is allowed. You can't be, if you're a poll worker or a poll watcher or someone in the media where you're hanging out at the polling site for an extended period of time, then you are restricted. You can't be wearing that kind of those kinds of things, because then it's considered electioneering.
Some people have gone in with their stuff on and lingered and hung out, and you can't do that.
Can't do that.
Vote and get out.
Yes, your right to vote supersedes the electioneering rule when you're actually just going and voting, leaving. But if you're doing more than that, then you shouldn't do that. Elaine has worked in our office. We've had some extra staff.
Thrilling. It is democracy in action. It is just brings me to tears. And, I was a poll worker in Virginia when we lived in the Washington DC area, and that clothing thing was in place then. And I was a poll worker in Fort Myers, Florida also, and that rule was in place. And that was decades ago. So that the idea of being campaigning at polling place has been in place for a long time. And I have to say, it is a well-oiled machine that Ben has there as a polling place. There are 3 terminals not hooked together, and there are 2 volunteers, I being one and another, and we signed up for 8 to 12 or 12 to 4 shifts. And the staff jumps into that 3rd terminal when there's a line. And on the very first day, I kept a close eye on the people coming in, and no one had to wait more than 5 or 7 minutes in that line to get to one of those terminals. And that was like only 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
So
When the line is long, my point has been, if the line gets long, when it gets the busiest it gets, you still have a ballot in your hand within 5 minutes. And most of the time, 90% of the time, there isn't really a line. Within a minute or 2, you're up to a terminal and can get checked in.
and that's a very tight little space there,
It
but
is.
there's an extra room that they set up, and that holds about 10.
10 or 11, I think it's 11
And
booths.
so when it gets too tight in that little room, everybody can be moved, anybody can be moved to that other room. And then there is someone watching all of the time when someone is in that room, the ballot box that's in there. So there's no way that ballot can be out in the hallway.
Yeah, we're even careful. We don't let them carry their ballot through the hallway to go into the other room. If we meet them there with their ballot. So the ballot actually never leaves one of our 2 office spaces where we have someone monitoring. Yeah, I've been very pleased. It has been very smooth process. We've, even as busy as we are, that we've been getting people through as quickly as we have, so.
How about vehicles in a parking lot? Is there restrictions on that?
Yes, they are restricted. I don't remember the number. There's a number of square inches. So
Sticker?
yeah, that a sticker or a campaign, yeah, so a bumper sticker is okay. You can come to a place with a bumper sticker because it's below the number of square inches. If you have like a big sign in the back of your vehicle, then you aren't allowed to park that within 300 feet of the courthouse as a polling location.
Or the polling location.
Or
that they-
a location on election day, yeah. Yeah, and it's probably a misconception that, I mean, we manage the voting, but we aren't the sign police. If you spot something you're sure welcome to tell us, but really it's the Iowa Ethics and Campaign Disclosure Board that is the enforcement office for violations of campaign ethics. So
would they call the sheriff?
they could call the sheriff, or they can file a letter with the candidate or whatever it is. I mean, sometimes it isn't the candidate's, outside of the candidate's control. If someone else takes one of your signs, it's a candidate, and puts it on their, all over their vehicle and then parks it in the parking lot, you don't have control over that, but you can at least ask them to not do it, I guess, so.
And what's your experience of poll watchers in the past?
Yeah, so during the absentee voting itself, there isn't poll watchers, because they, at that point, they're just casting their ballot to be saved, to be counted later. So the absentee votes are all stored, and then when they're brought out of storage by the bipartisan team on election day for counting, then there can be poll watchers watching that process at that time. There is a, whether it's like the ones I reported earlier, there is a challenge process that people can challenge other people's right to vote. So the inspection of the documents that the voter signs is an open process that poll watchers could witness and look through and challenge. We've never had a challenge by just a random person for a random voter. These couple of questionable whether they're US citizens or not are the first challenges we've actually had to an actual vote. We have had in the past challenges to voter registrations, but those are prohibited within 90 days of an election. So if there were groups that wanted to challenge whether a person should be registered or not, they had to do that earlier this year. That's prohibited within 90 days of an election. So we had some of those last year that we resolved through the challenge process, but
Otherwise, you'll be spending all of your time
yeah,
during the election.
yes, doing challenges, yes, yeah.
Consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's the minutes, the claims, and a VA monthly report.
Motion is second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, you have a question for Ben? On elections, if I have my list of all voters in my district, am I able to come up and compare that to those who have already voted?
Well, you could if you wanted to. The easiest way to do that is you can get a list of, you can actually sign up for daily updates through the Secretary of State's office of the people who have already voted.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's
On their
probably,
website?
yes, through the same process you use to get a voting list. There's one of the options is absentee, yeah, updated absentee, whether you want daily or weekly or whatever. You work with them. You probably could even contact the party, because I know that the parties already get those daily updates. So maybe rather than you trying to pay and get them again, you could get them through your political party. But that's a common strategy to track who's already voted.
Well, when I was a poll watcher in the past, I know we could go to the poll location itself and look at the slips and
Yep.
and leave the slips there, but
Yeah.
you do it, can we still do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can do that as a poll watcher,
Yeah.
and you could go through, but it would be very inefficient. Plus, then we would have to have someone watching over them. You could go through the absentee envelopes that have already been cast, and,
You're not gonna be a
I can't, because
fan.
I'm the candidate.
right.
You wouldn't be a fan of.
You want to clear for
office at this point.
It's what we-
Same reason you get challenged within 90 days.
Yeah,
it's what we've
but
done in
the
past.
The easiest, we daily balance I mean, we know exactly how many voted ballots we have. We balance that to the list that the Secretary of State maintains on a daily basis. We know how many ballots we've issued, how many are left. I mean, we track all of that. And to the extent that an absentee voter can even track their ballot, if it's been mailed out but hasn't been returned, they can see that online. So it's much easier to go through, use the technology to get the list that way than to try to actually look at them. But
Thank
on
you.
election day, you don't know, but that's why you have to do it
Right.
by looking at the slips, because
Right.
those lists of who's voted aren't regularly updated on election day like they are during the absentee season, where we're entering them as their.
Right.
All right, we have a motion for adjournment
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You can still ask your question.
And talk shortly about the process in that absentee counting the ballot on election day.
You count them back from.
Yeah, so some people wonder why we have the secrecy sleeve. You put your ballot in a secrecy sleeve and then you put the secrecy sleeve in a white envelope that has your, we use a process. Part of the reason I think that ours goes smoothly is that we put the application for an absentee ballot on the envelope. And so you sign the envelope twice because one is the application for an absentee ballot and one is the affidavit of the voter. Some counties make you fill out a separate paper to request the ballot. Because it's, and so a separate application, so then you have two pieces of paper, so then they have to paper clip the separate paper to each envelope, which I think takes a lot longer. Anyway, so, but that's why you sign it twice. The, when you open it, when we have the team opening the ballots, well, we usually use 3-member teams. It has to be at least one Democrat and one Republican in each team, but one person will cut it and will take the secrecy sleeve out of the ballot with all the voters' information and pass it down to the next person. Then that person takes the ballot out of the secrecy sleeve and passes it to the next person who will flatten it out and put it in a stack. So the person who can see the ballot never sees the name that was on the envelope, so that your privacy is preserved in the process of the opening them. So the only exception to that is when we do the people who have submitted ballots that are overseas civilians, they have to have their ballot open and then transferred because they print it off. Most of them get it by email. So we have to have a team, a bipartisan team that takes that emailed paper and takes the votes and puts them on a real ballot, marks the real ballot. And so when you do it by email, you do sign a paper that says you waive your right to secrecy because somebody's got to take your emailed, your own printed paper ballot and put it on a real ballot. So people are going to see that process. But it's much more convenient to them if we had to mail. Some overseas places mail, it's not quick. So it's a funny story about that. And it,
Quick around here.
yeah, a funny story about that. And you know, it's not really funny, but we got a ballot that was sent to South Korea in the 2020 election back in the mail just in the last week.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, my dear.
So it took 4 years
Wow.
of getting lost someplace and probably in the South Korean mail system. I'm not going to blame the US postal system, but you know, I don't know for sure.
My request, my mailed request with a mailed check to request my list for District 3, gone. It's just gone. So I had to send a second one, certified mail.
Mhm.
It still has not been cashed or found. So I'm glad a lot of absentee early
I
voters are
think-
coming to the.
I definitely encourage anyone, and I've said this for years, that if you're able
Get up
to
there.
come up here, come up to the office and do it, because it's just, it's safer and more secure. You don't have to worry about. Now, I don't want that to be misconstrued, that I discourage people to vote by mail, because there are some people that that's the option, the only option they have. When I was a senior at Luther, I was studying abroad in Norway. So I had to have my ballot mailed to me in Norway, and I mailed it back from Norway to get my ballot cast. So I know that I couldn't be there.
If they are physically impaired and cannot make it up here with their absentee ballot, a family member can return it.
Oh, anyone in the household can return it without question.
And like if they're in a nursing home, the director of that nursing home or an official from the nursing home.
In the nursing home is a different process completely. For nursing home residents, we actually did this last week. We sent a 2-person bipartisan team I'll have a lot of patience for the patients, because they went and they sat with each nursing home resident one at a time, helped them make sure they understood what they were doing. If the person couldn't mark the ballot, that it was a bipartisan team, so they would even mark the ballots for the people, make sure it all gets sealed up and sealed correctly. And so they delivered those and brought them back to us for the nursing home residents. And that's actually how it's required for nursing home residents. And in the hospital, it actually is the same if you're in the hospital. If you get admitted to the hospital next weekend and you haven't voted yet, you can request and we'll send 2 people there to deliver your ballot and help you make sure that you get it and get it back to us.
And then if you die before election day and you've already voted, your vote does not count.
It does not count. You have to be
Did you know?
alive on election day.
Don't pull the plug.
A staff person brought a clipboard down to the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, that's
Someone.
the other option too, is if you have limited mobility, but you can get to the parking lot, we'll send staff people down with your materials and let you vote in your car and then take it back up. It's always going to be watched over, but you can vote secretly in your car. That's what you want. And we also have, you can bring in someone to assist you, and we have the voter sign a permission form, and then the person assisting signing an affidavit that they're assisting, not directing, and then they can have that person.
When I was voting, I saw that.
Yeah.
System happening very smoothly.
Yeah.
So.
And actually, it was kind of disappointing because we had one of the 2 people that was on our non-citizen list was a person who was in a group. There were 4 of them that came in. They didn't speak much English, but between the instructions that I gave, they brought a community member with them too to help explain instructions. And we put them in the separate room, even though it wasn't busy enough to need to, just so that she could go from place to place and answer questions and help them. And we got all 4 of them voted, and then one of them was on this list that we got from that. But it's a check and balance. I think it is important because we already know there are national candidates that have been pushing a story that there are, mass voting by non-citizens. So this is a way for us in Iowa to say we have done as much as we can to prevent this from happening. Right. I mean, we only have 9. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Thank you for attending, everybody online.